very concerned about the future of a brand that I used to love, Mitsubishi. Mitsubishi is in dire straits. They need a change. They are desperately in, massive need of structural reform at this Japanese company, which is basically run by old men. And unfortunately, they've just revealed their plan to save themselves. They actually say this themselves as well. This is our global plan to save our bacon, to save our butts. But I just read every little bit of their plan and I found absolutely nothing of any real substance. Mitsubishi have a dull, uninspired lineup. They have only one car that is even relevant in any way, shape or form. That's outside of Japan and Southeast Asia, where they sell cheap kei cars, small boxes. Their future model plan is almost non-existent. They've said they're going to reveal a new model every year, but it turns out that those new models will actually be rebadged Nissans and maybe even rebadged Renaults as well. Now, speaking of actual sales, Mitsubishi used to sell, they sold over 130,000 cars in China a couple of years ago. Well, they now cease to exist in that country. The same thing is likely to happen to Mitsubishi in Europe, where their sales have fallen by more than 70% over the last few years. Mitsubishi launched in the United States in 1982. It took the brand only 6 years to reach 6-digit annual sales figures. Now it's selling well under that number. And honestly, guys, how much brand loyalty is there to Mitsubishi? I mean, really? Do people really go and buy Mitsubishi because they love Mitsubishi? Do you hear people saying that? No, I know there's heaps of people who do that because they love Ford, they love General Motors, they love Toyota. But I've never heard anyone say I bought a Mitsubishi because, I'm loyal to the brand. I've been buying them ever since I was 18. I don't think that is a thing. Mitsubishi is just another middling brand waiting to die. Here's why. Usually, debt is only a big problem when a company can't easily repay their debt. But here's the thing. If your sales are falling and you're exiting your most important car markets worldwide, can you continue to pay your debts? Well, in the case of Mitsubishi, it's true. They don't have a whole lot of debt. However, Mitsubishi's balance sheet is not as strong as you might think. They've committed to spending billions of dollars on some mystery cars. One of them is a van. We can see from Mitsubishi Motors' most recent balance sheet that they have liabilities of Japanese yen 1.8 trillion falling due within a year and liabilities of Japanese yen 219 billion beyond that. Offsetting these obligations, they have cash of 640 billion. Receivables valued at 365 billion. So their liabilities actually outweigh the sum of their cash and near-term receivables. It doesn't have a heavy debt load. So everything sounds all rosy at Mitsubishi, right? Well, maybe not. In the last 3 years, Mitsubishi Motors' free cash flow amounted to 43% of its EBIT, which is less than you would expect for a successful automaker. And investors are extremely concerned. Mitsubishi Motors is trying to regain its strength in Asian markets, but investors, they're not interested. In the current fiscal year through March, the Japanese automaker's sales volume in the region is forecast to drop more than 10%, which means its profit there is likely to halve. Now, we spoke of their debt not being a big issue, but that would be assuming that everything will just continue as normal. There'd be no disruption. The car market would stay as it is, exactly as it is in 2023. Mitsubishi Motors, until March 2019, had sought to increase its sales in every region it operated. It revealed this plan to magically revive itself in China, a 5-year plan. Well, 5 years later, Mitsubishi Motors does not exist in China at all anymore. Since late September of 2023, when it was reported the car maker would end auto production in China, Mitsubishi Motors' stock price has been coming down. The automaker's China unit sales plunged in the fiscal year ending this past March to less than 1/3 from where they were 4 years earlier. Its operating profit was an even smaller fraction of what it pulled in for the fiscal year through March 2019. Less than 1/5, in fact. Investors sometimes appreciate, right? Companies withdrawing from unprofitable businesses. The price of Mitsubishi Motors stock, though, is still more than 20% below where it was before news of its desertion of China. It is only one of Japan's 7 leading automakers whose share price has fallen from the end of last year. This is despite Mitsubishi Motors' forecast of record operating profits, which is really only a result of the depreciation of the Japanese yen. The Nikkei says that Mitsubishi Motors' global sales are projected to decrease 30% over the next 24 months. In contrast, its Japanese sales partners, as much as they're struggling in places like China, their sales are projected to stay around the same. Now, the biggest reason for the problems at Mitsubishi is, well, unfavorable market conditions. They're not the biggest problem. The automaker has failed to upgrade or renew any models in a timely manner. Now, this delay was partly attributable to the company's decision to raise its global market share under former chairman Carlos Ghosn. In the 3 years through March 2020, Mitsubishi spent $2.5 billion on research and development, up from 240 billion yen, or around 1.5 billion in the preceding 3-year period. The all-around strategy backfired because we could not allocate enough funds to each model, said Mitsubishi. This strategic error increased competition, and drivers going longer between car purchases have conspired against Mitsubishi Motors sales, say market watchers. Now Mitsubishi is under a lot of pressure to find funds, billions of dollars, to develop electric vehicles. Mitsubishi, as a mid-sized car maker, is at a disadvantage despite its alliance with Nissan Motor and Renault. To survive, it needs to specify the regions where it can operate profitably to banks, it needs to tell the banks, right? And allocate management resources in an appropriate manner. But the question is, how exactly are they going to do that? Which bank exactly is going to go and lend Mitsubishi billions of dollars? Now, the most important vehicle for Mitsubishi is clearly the Triton. Now, although that's not an American-sold vehicle, it is the highest selling vehicle in Mitsubishi's global lineup, taking more than 20% of their car sales worldwide. Mitsubishi just revealed a new Triton that they've spent billions of dollars, apparently over the years, working on, investing in. This new model is said to have cost nearly $1 billion to actually manufacture and design. But it's barely any different to the old model. There's no electric version and there's no plug-in hybrid version. You've got companies like BYD revealing their brand new BYD Shark plug-in hybrid, which will also be EV only, and vehicles like that, and other plug-in hybrids coming from Ford, other electric vehicles coming from other automakers, will obviously pretty well annihilate Triton sales over the next few years. In North America, Mitsubishi Motors' current profit is almost primarily only attributable to the yen's depreciation. Previously, the automaker's US operations had been in the red. They've been losing money in America for years. The other problem here for Mitsubishi Motors making cars in the US, where they've just revealed their so-called ambitious plan to save themselves in America, is that none of their cars qualify in the US for any EV incentives whatsoever. They don't make any vehicles in the United States. They only make them in Thailand and Japan. Well, 90% or more anyway. Well, I've just wasted many hours of my life researching Mitsubishi Motors and what's happening with them. Mitsubishi Motors, well, they basically went bankrupt in China. They no longer exist in China. Only a few years ago, in fact, they sold around 130,000 vehicles in China. And hey, let's be fair to Mitsubishi, most legacy automakers are going to follow them as well. But Mitsubishi Motors, they unfortunately are very much dependent on Japan for their existence. But in Japan, they only mostly sell small key cars. They're not very profitable. They're small boxes. You can't really sell those outside of Japan because they don't meet actual safety regulations in the Western world. And so that means that the company has become less and less relevant. In 2023, Mitsubishi Motors sold almost exactly 1 million cars worldwide. It's a company in decline. They really only have 3 models that are global cars. And out of those 3, the only model that people really actually think is a future vehicle that people are going to consider is the Mitsubishi Outlander. You got to admit the Mitsubishi Outlander does look pretty good, but its brothers or sisters or whatever you might want to call them, they're all pretty much dead in the water. The ASX or the Outlander Sport, as it's called in the US, that's an ancient vehicle now, and it doesn't have a replacement. Now, the other car that Mitsubishi sell, the Mirage in the United States, yeah, that's dead in the water. That's going to be discontinued, I believe, next year. That leaves Mitsubishi Motors really with only one car for sale in the United States. And realistically, that means, well, what are they going to do? Mitsubishi have revealed their turnaround plan to save the company. They say they've been through hell. They've been through the worst hell you can imagine, and they're going to save the company. It doesn't matter what. That's what they're planning to do. And they say, we're not going to be just a Japanese and Southeast Asian company. Now, right now, the majority of Mitsubishi sales worldwide are Japan, Southeast Asia, and then they have smaller numbers of sales in Australia and the United States, around 70 to 80,000 vehicles in those two countries. Now, it's true they do sell vehicles in Europe, but Europe looks a bit like China. I mean, have a look at this, right? Mitsubishi sold 158,000 cars in Europe in 2019. In 2022, that had fallen to 30,000. If you sell 30,000 vehicles, only 30,000 across an entire continent of Europe, primarily the majority of those are in Russia, by the way, then, well, it's only so long. The writing's on the wall for Europe as well. Now, the intriguing part here, guys, is Mitsubishi Motors, they used to be very relevant in the United States. I mean, let's have a look at these sales numbers here. They're quite interesting. Mitsubishi sold, well, it used to sell quite a lot of cars in Canada. Well, Mitsubishi, it doesn't sell cars in Canada either anymore. They're pulled out of the country completely. Well, let's get to the US sales figures for Mitsubishi. Mitsubishi were one of the biggest car makers in the US not that long ago. In 1987, Mitsubishi sold 98,206 vehicles in the United States. By the year 2000, Mitsubishi failed to exist in the US at all. They sold 100 cars. The following year, 2001, they sold one car. In 2002, one car again, 0 cars in 2004, and then they suddenly revived themselves. In 2007, they sold 129,000 vehicles, and it looked like Mitsubishi was back. But by 2012, those sales figures had dropped down to 62,000. 2018, Mitsubishi somehow revived themselves again, back up to 118,000. But in 2023, Mitsubishi sold only 87,000 vehicles in the United States. And Mitsubishi, they're very well aware that there's a chance they may cease to exist in the US as well. Now, considering this company sells only 1 million cars worldwide, with the majority of those being pretty low margin key cars or small cars that they sell in Southeast Asia, Mitsubishi knows they need America, they need Australia. They sell a similar number of cars in Australia and America. And yeah, they're very dependent on America and Australia for actually making profit from their vehicles. Now, a lot of analysts believe that Mitsubishi is finished. I mean, here you go, Car Buzz, very good information here from Roger Bierman in 2023 saying Mitsubishi won't survive the electric car revolution. Now, I agree, Roger, 100%. Mitsubishi will probably cease to exist as a company, very likely by 2035. I believe they're completely finished. The company will likely be purchased by some sort of conglomerate, probably a Chinese conglomerate like Geely, someone else like that anyway. I would probably bet a lot of money that will happen. But what do you guys think in the comments? Let me know. Now, Mitsubishi not surviving the electric car revolution doesn't necessarily mean they're going to die next year. But give it a few years' time and the writing's on the wall. I mean, the fact that they now cease to exist in China when they were selling nearly 150,000 cars there only a couple of years ago shows you how fast things can change. Disruption happens quickly. And Mitsubishi have announced their ambitious plan to save themselves in America. Some people think it might work. Personally, I think there's, little chance of this working in the long term. Now, clearly Mitsubishi is aware of the problem that it finds itself in the American market now that it has announced its 5-year business plan to rescue the company before the decade's end. Dubbed Momentum 2030, this so-called ambitious 5-year plan will overhaul the Japanese automaker's current lineup with one new or completely refreshed model to be launched every year between 2026 and 2030. Now, Mitsubishi are not making it very vocal, but this is part of their plan. Rebadge other brands' vehicles and sell them as a Mitsubishi. I could probably end it here and you'd know what their 5-year plan is, but there is a little bit more information here. Now, for one, they said that they will bring in electrification. I don't say much about that. There is rumors of an electric pickup truck, but that will be made by Nissan and rebadged and sold as a Mitsubishi. They will have a renewed and expanded product lineup and modernized retail sales and expanded dealer network and sales growth. That's all very generic. Is there any facts? Well, Mitsubishi haven't spilled the beans on the exact models that this revolutionary 5-year plan have, but they said the lineup will be nearly double in 2030. At present, they sell only the Outlander or the Mitsubishi ASX, the Outlander Sport, which is, like I said, that's the ASX, the Mirage, and the Eclipse Cross. The ASX is about to die. The Mirage is pretty much already dead. So they have just the Eclipse Cross and the Outlander. Now, the Eclipse Cross, that will soon become defunct as well. Now, speaking of the Outlander Sport, which, guys, if you're in Australia, that's called the ASX, a replacement has been announced in Europe as a rebadged Renault. Will that come to anywhere else? A rebadged Renault? Would you want to buy that? It's going to be made in Europe. Won't be cheap. The current Mitsubishi ASX or the Outlander Sport is cheap. It's a cheap car. And that's why its sales have been okay. I don't see anything happening with that. Now, Mitsubishi have said that a subcompact or the Mirage will end production this year worldwide. But they will actually sell it in 2025 because there is a surplus of model production, as in they have lots of Mirages that nobody's buying, like a Mirage in the desert. Anyhow, Automotive News says a new plug-in hybrid small crossover will launch in late 2025, which will replace the Mirage. Now, Mitsubishi have said they will bring out a passenger van with a focus on outdoor adventure, because so many people want to buy passenger vans that are used for outdoor adventure. Now, to be honest, maybe you do. Maybe there's a couple of people who do. But honestly, there is no vehicle in the top 30 best-selling cars in the world, not one model in the top 30 that is a van with a focus on outdoor adventure. Now, I actually like the idea, but it just isn't going to sell. Now, apparently, this is going to be a production version of the DX concept, which is a 6-seat plug-in hybrid minivan that launched at last year's Japan Mobility Show. This concept also appears in the shadowy teaser image from Mitsubishi's announcement. Anyway, that's one of their vehicles. Apparently, they'll also have a Outlander Rugged Edition described as Subaru Outback-like in the same vein as the Outback Wilderness. Anyway. Now, getting back to the pickup truck, small electric pickup truck, but Mitsubishi won't make it. It'll be made, I believe, by Nissan and manufactured by Nissan. Now, in case you weren't aware of this, Mitsubishi doesn't make cars in the US. They don't make cars in Australia anymore. They used to. They used to make cars in both countries. They've removed themselves. They used to make cars in China as well. Don't do that anymore either. So Mitsubishi now manufacture almost all their cars in 2 places, Japan and Thailand. Here's the biggest problem for Mitsubishi, though. They're lagging behind when it comes to EVs, obviously. I mean, tell me an EV that Mitsubishi sell that is even remotely relevant worldwide. Mitsubishi is one brand that has lagged behind EVs. And why? I mean, Renault and Nissan both sell EVs. They could have rebranded some of those, but they've chosen not to. That said, the Japanese brands say they want to embrace electrification beyond just the Outlander plug-in hybrid. But how exactly do you do that? When you're a company that only builds cars in Japan and Thailand, I mean, how will they actually be able to cost effectively produce an electric car? Where exactly? In China? That's right, they pulled out of China. I don't think that's going to happen. So basically, Mitsubishi is saying somehow they're going to make an EVs in Thailand or Japan that will compete with all these Chinese electric cars. I I don't see that happening, to be honest. But anyway, you never know. It's possible. Mitsubishi says its onslaught, don't know what these cars are, but its onslaught of models will advance with a blend of powertrains, hybrid, plug-in hybrid, and battery electric. They didn't reveal any details of any of those drivetrains at all, though. In addition to the production of the DX van, there will be plug-in hybrids that will be the key to this strategy, say Mitsubishi. Standard hybrid powertrains will make up the bulk of its mass market sales worldwide, though. So think of things like the original Prius, old hybrids, that kind of technology, not new plug-in hybrids that will make up predominantly most Mitsubishi sales worldwide. But Mitsubishi says that normal internal combustion engine vehicles may still have a place in the lineup, described by Mitsubishi as advanced technology internal combustion engines. I'm just going to repeat that, guys. Advanced technology internal combustion engines. Yeah, sounds a lot like Mazda to me. The Momentum 2030 plan will invest in North America by expanding the dealer network, but by producing vehicles locally as well. Basically, it's going to rebadge Nissan vehicles and sell them as Mitsubishis. That's the core part to their Save the US sales plan. Now, basically, Mitsubishi is saying that they're going to have their vehicles actually manufactured at Nissan plants in America. But what they're really saying is they'll rebadge Nissan vehicles at Nissan plants in America. The most likely vehicle that they'll rebadge is Nissan's Smyra vehicle assembly plant in Tennessee. That's where they'll rebadge their vehicles. That's where Nissan makes the Nissan Pathfinder, the Nissan Rogue, the Nissan Murano, the Nissan Leaf, and the Infiniti QX60. None of those cars are future model cars. None of them are new cars. None are even remotely interesting in terms of actually taking market share in the US. I don't see how this will save Mitsubishi. Production of the Rogue is moving to Japan, the Nissan Rogue, for the next generation in 2026. Production of the Leaf apparently is likely to move to the UK, and that's about all Mitsubishi revealed. To be honest here, guys, it was very hard to do research on the Mitsubishi brand. Just try and find out how many sales Mitsubishi sold yearly worldwide for the last 20 years. See how long it takes you to find that out. It's quite challenging. Just try and find out information from Mitsubishi on how many cars they sell worldwide in certain locations. Like, where are their cars sold? Where were they all sold? Which countries were they sold in last year? It's not easy information to find out. Mitsubishi said this: the next 10 years will be great for this brand. MMC, Mitsubishi Motors Corporation, is making a significant investment to ensure our collective future. Momentum 2030 will drive more sales, more service, more Mitsubishi vehicles on the road, and more Mitsubishi dealer partners around the country. Yes, this is our time. Team Mitsubishi. Honestly, guys, I see this as, we throw around the word Kodak quite often, but there's no question. This is one of the next Kodaks. There's a number of Kodaks. This is another one of them. Mitsubishi's future plan involves exactly jack shit. There's nothing here of any intrigue, any interest. There's no significant investment. Mitsubishi say they're going to invest billions into what exactly? No one knows. Which models exactly? No one exactly knows. All we know is there's an adventure van coming. But the ASX, or the Outlander Sport, is dead. The Mirage is dead. The Eclipse is finished. That leaves Mitsubishi with exactly one vehicle, which is relevant. And it is, but realistically, how relevant is it? The Outlander. That's a decent car. I've got to say, credit. It's a decent car. But you can't rely on one car, right? And they have no real plans to turn this into an EV or to actually make their own vehicles. They're just going to rebadge Nissan vehicles. That's Mitsubishi's plan. Now, yes, Mitsubishi will probably continue to sell plenty of vehicles in Japan, plenty of key cars, very small margins involved with those little boxes. Plenty of those are sold as well, those small cars that they sell in Southeast Asia. But honestly, you need to sell a minimum of 1 million cars per year. This is the global rule to stay productive in terms of actually making a profit. You cannot exist in the car world for more than a few years unless you're making 1 million cars a year. Now, we know the predominant number of Mitsubishi sales, more than 90% of them are not EVs. More than 90%. Mitsubishi has no plans to significantly increase that number. They have no plans for any production EVs that I know of. There's nothing. What exactly is there? Nissan has not revealed a single model which will be produced in the next couple of years. So this is a company that is dying, and it really only has a number of years left.